Welcome back. I just want to give a loud shout out again for Liberty, our sponsors, without whom this would not be possible. And I want to remind you about the Tenfold Education application, which you should download, and also that you can rewatch this on YouTube at Mindset Learn. So let's dive into this paper, shall we? Paper 1 consists of the overarching topics of business environments and business operations. So let's go into a bit more detail. So business environments actually has 3 chapters under it. It's got legislation, it's got business strategies, and then business sectors and their environments. Now I've already told you that business sectors and their environments is a small section which you should not be focused on way too much. Business operations, on the other side, is focused on human resources and quality of performance. Some interesting facts about last year, which I thought you might enjoy, is that all the questions on business environments and on the quality of performance had been asked in previous years, meaning 2020 or 2021. Question 1, 13 of the sub-questions had been asked in previous years. That's 13 out of 15. So learners did quite well because they've seen the questions before. Question 2 is about business environments. The business strategies and legislation section, 6 out of 7 questions were familiar. It had been asked before, but learners still struggled. Question 3 was about business operations. Learners did well with that question and exceptionally well with the HR section. Question 4, there was a bit mixed with business operations that went well, but not the business environments. Question 5, now remember this is your essay question. The legislation was not a popular choice, and learners that did do it struggled, whereas question 6 was about quality of performance, which was the popular choice, and learners did well. So, out of this, I do hope that you have realized that working through old past papers is of great value to you, but do not go further than 2020, for prior to that will not be of much value to you. Business environments. So this section is legislation, business strategies, and business sectors and environments. I've put here the mark allocations, and I want you to be aware that this business sectors, for example, it only counts 6 out of 150 marks. Perhaps don't spend so much time on it. That's what I'm trying to say. But legislation and business strategies, both in section B and in section C, counts a lot of work, a lot of marks. And section C, the moment you see that this section might be asked in section C, you must realize that this can be an essay question and you need to study it thoroughly. Legislation, that's the first chapter. Now, people are always afraid of this section because it seems like so much content. But if you summarize it in a logical way, it's actually not so bad. There are only 5 things that they want to know, and I'll get to that just now. But there are also only 8 acts. So you have the Skills Development Act, Labour Relations Act, the EEA, and the BCEA. Become very familiar with these abbreviations, for in your scenarios they can very well ask you abbreviation and you need to know what it means. The SDA has 3 additional points that is important over all those little 5 points that I'm going to get to, which is the meaning of a learnership, funding of SETAs, and the role of SETAs. Now, I have seen either the funding of SETA or the role of SETAs in nearly every paper that I have seen. So it's low-hanging fruit, something you should be aware of. Your BCEA, they love asking questions on leave, maternity leave, paternity leave, sick leave, and all the variations of that. So that's a good section to know well as well. Then you have your COIDA, you have your BBEE, you have your NCA, National Credit Act, where I am highlighting this consumer rights because that's something additional that you need to study. Then you have your CPA, which is your Consumer Protection Act. Now, what is these five points that I'm talking about? In every act has a purpose. Every act has an impact, and by now I seriously hope that you've realized that it means both advantages and disadvantages. Discriminatory actions are included, compliance, how does a business comply with this act, and what happens if a business does not comply. So the way that I have recommended my students to study this section is actually by using this. All right, this is just a normal A4 page that you have folded up into 8 pieces, and then you might want to use a few of these pages. Then you list your acts, your SDA, your BCA, your NCA, you list them on the sides, and then on that side you list purpose, advantages, disadvantages, discriminatory actions, how to comply, and penalties for non-compliance. You're basically making a summary, and then in that little block you answer the questions. This will make it a visually appealing image for you to study, which would simplify your life tremendously. If you, however, do not have time to do that right now, there is a free departmental resource which your teacher could make available to you, where they've already done something very similar to you, called the Summary of the Acts. So ask your teacher for it if she hasn't provided you with it as yet. Business strategies is the next section. Now, this is a very interesting section because you've been actually doing this since grade 10. You started in grade 10 with the vision and the mission, and then you also mentioned the industrial analysis tools, but in grade 12 you actually get assessed on it, and we'll look at which ones there are now. We also looking at formulating a strategy. This is very important for grade 12, you're being assessed on it. But this developing of an action plan and the implementing of it, you did in grade 11. That's that Gantt charts and the work-based program, and that you've covered it last year and you're not being assessed on it this year. This evaluating and monitoring, however, you are being assessed on. So evaluating this strategy is important. It is surprising to me that learners don't realize that if you get asked to list the steps in the strategic management process, that they actually don't know what to answer since they've been doing it from grade 10. It is these 6 steps that they are basically asking you to outline. Industrial analysis tools. Now this is part of the strategic process, and there are 3. The first one being the SWOT analysis. Now it's the basic one: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I just want you to be mindful that your strengths and your weaknesses are both internal, where your opportunities and threats is external to the business. So a strength is you've got lots of capital and good staff. A weakness would be your financial manager committing fraud, or a high staff turnover, or something to that effect. An opportunity would be a collaboration with a supplier that they will supply to you only. A threat is quite often it's your business is in a high crime rate area. It's something external to the business. That's the only thing to be mindful of there. Your second one is your Porter's 5 forces model, your 3 P's and your 2 T's. Here you need to be able to identify it from a scenario and or apply it to a scenario. So it's the power of suppliers, the power of buyers, the power of competitors, threat of substitution, and threat of new entrants into the market or potential competitors. Your third one is pestle analysis. This is the one that I enjoy the most and is very popular as well. They're going to give you a challenge, and then they're going to ask you to identify, using the pestle analysis, which category is it? Political, economical, social, technological, legislation, environment. And then they're going to, very importantly, ask you why is this a challenge? And then you need to suggest a solution. Now, if you are creative and think logical, you should be able to come up with a solution on your own. This is not something that you necessarily have to study. An example of political would be what the EFF made us do the other day. They threatened a protest, and then the whole country decided, no, you know what? We are doing a stay away. We are scared that our properties are going to be damaged. And the Patco buses decided they are not going to participate and transport strikers and protesters to their venues. And because of that, it affected the businesses because they lost a day where they could make sales. Economical, usually they go for the interest rate. Social, that is anything about our behavior. Halal, the butcher that doesn't sell halal meats, but he's in a Muslim area, things like that. Technologically, artificial intelligence or ChatGPT, any technology that is used or not used that is holding a company back. Legislation, a law changing that influences your industry will definitely affect you. And environmental, like what they called the king tides that just happened in the Cape. That was horrific. That definitely affected all the businesses in that area. All right, then you need to formulate a strategy. There are integration strategies, intensive strategies, and 2 more. This section I do not want to go into a lot of detail because I do not have time. But this is exceptionally important that you at least be able to list and explain each of them. If you are saying an integration strategy, you need to realize when to use forward, backward, and horizontal. Same with intensive. If you are saying I'm going to use an intensive strategy to solve this, I'm going to use market penetration, market development, or product development, it is quite likely going to be combined with the advantages of using those strategies. The other 2 strategies is diversification and defensive strategies. Very important about defensive strategies, they only get used when a business is really, really in trouble. So don't recommend a defensive strategy if the business is not near bankruptcy. All right. You need to go through this section and make sure that you understand words like conglomerate, horizontal, concentric diversification, and know the advantages of that as well. They are very popular in the exam papers as well. Well, before we continue, I would like to take a brief break, and then I'll be back in a few seconds.